Cinderella is easily one of Disney's most successful classic movie series, with a highly successful movie, a remake that made over $500 million at the box office, and two of the most successful direct-to-DVD sequels that Disney has ever had. Yeah, if you didn't know, Cinderella 2 was highly successful, with an estimated revenue of $120 million. So it's no surprise they made another sequel, and even gave it a larger budget. So hi, my name is Animation Review, and today I'm going to look at Cinderella 3. The film opens up with a song called Perfectly Perfect, which is a really cool song that highlights the contrast between Cinderella's perfect life as a princess and the stepsister's life in squalor, without a maid to do the work. Musically, it's nothing special, but I do like the change in tone between the two. It sets up the main conflict of the film pretty well, and flows really well into the second part. Anastasia wishes for what Cinderella has, and finds out exactly how it happened. This part of the song splits further between the two sides, that being the fairy godmother celebrating the year's success and Anastasia imagining how her life would be with the wand. And as the song crescendos into its grand finale, Anastasia gets a hold of the fairy godmother's wand. When she fights fairy godmother for it, she accidentally turns her into stone, and the stepmother gains control of it. She then uses this power to travel back in time and do it right, now that they have the chance to. This is a crazy plot for a Cinderella story, one that I really like. I'm always a firm believer that a crazy story can work really well, especially when a series is barren with new ideas. Cast 2. And the time travel plot logistically works well as well. Everyone who was there at the time the time travel stays the same, that being stepmother, Drizella, Anastasia and stone statue fairy godmother. However, those who aren't there, like Cinderella, Prince Charming and Lucifer, get reversed to the previous year. Also, Drizella is hilarious in this film. She doesn't have a huge presence as a comic relief, but it's just some quick jabs every once in a while that she'll throw out there and that I find really entertaining. But she can't compare to the brilliance of the evil stepmother. She always has this air of superiority around her. It's clear that she still holds this belief that she should be the one in charge, even after she's already lost. It's this great demonstration of how twisted she truly is, and it makes her feel genuinely threatening, particularly when you compare it to the last film. All she does is say shopkeeper in a condescending tone. So they're all given a second chance. Anastasia fits the shoe, albeit with some bibbidi-bobbidi-boo attached, and they go to the castle. But not before we see another great scene where the stepmother confronts Cinderella, now having won, and we see another musical scene. This one's a mixed bag. Well, at the start it's pretty slow, it builds into a really nice ending that fully embodies classic Disney. The stakes are now ramped way up. Yes, in the Cinderella movie. The stakes in this Cinderella movie are ramped up. Now that she's been banned from going to the castle, she's got to save the day from stepmother while also staying under the radar and slipping past everyone. She accomplishes this by pretending to be the royal mouse catcher and meeting the twin sister Prudence. This gives the mice a larger presence in the movie than they need, which usually would be a bad thing, but they aren't that bad here, so I don't particularly mind. They've got a fairly nice dynamic, and the fact that they've scaled back to just Jack and Gus for the entire film makes them nicer characters already. Look, I can bear one mouse saying Cinderella, and I can almost tolerate two. But more than that, and I've had my fill of Cinderella. But we hastily cut to Prince Charming arguing with the king, and these are single-handedly the two best characters in the film. Like, none of the other characters are bad in any shape or form. Anastasia has a nice development. Cinderella's the most independent she's been in this film, even though she's one of the most independent princesses in Disney history. Drizella's been a blast whenever she's on screen, and the evil stepmother is tremendous. But the King and Prince Charming are the best duo I've seen in a Disney sequel. The King is an amazing straight man to Prince Charming in everything that happens, and I think he's a really underrated character. He embodies the voice of reason, and in his first scene highlights the absurdity of marrying someone because they fit a shoe. But the prince, oh boy, the prince. This film has definitively the best version of Prince Charming in media as a whole. If someone says, oh, I like the character of Prince Charming in Cinderella movies, they're talking about the one who jumped out a window. As a standard in Disney princess films, the prince is always a bland, boring character. Don't believe me? Tell me which Disney princess was saved by Prince Philip. You're wrong. Unless you got it right, and in that case, good job. It was Sleeping Beauty. Now, I'm sure when watching the original Cinderella, everyone was wondering why the prince couldn't just recognise Cinderella's face. Would he have just gone for anyone in that shoe? Well, that gets addressed here, and the answer is no, because he goes to see the newly shoed Anastasia and tells her that she's not the girl he's looking for. It isn't until the stepmother comes in again with a wand that the prince remembers everything differently, and the wedding is planned for tonight. The choice of when they travel back to is perfect. It gives significant stakes to Cinderella, who now has only one day to stop the stepmother, and it makes the situation more exciting. We next get a scene where Cinderella actually runs runs into Prince Charming, assuming that he'd recognise her. Unfortunately, the spell stops him recognising her and she is sent to the cellar to catch all the mice. After a quick conversation with them, she finds out what happens and is ready to get the wands back. And this is where the stakes with slipping under the radar really ramp up. Cinderella needs to get the stepmother's wand from right under her nose without getting noticed, and we get to see Cinderella jump right back into the action after the shenanigans with Anastasia and Gisela. Yeah, this movie is split between Anastasia and Cinderella's story, and while both stories are important, I'm glad the Anastasia story is here. It is quite jarring to one second be super excited and ready to see more, for the other section being much slower paced. However, it isn't without merit. Like I said, I like this plotline. Here we get to see the king's reaction as an important element of the subplot, and someone who isn't under a spell. And we even get to see some memory of the king's wife. To see the king take interest in Anastasia because she reminds him of his wife is sweet, and I think it makes both of them more three-dimensional. Okay, so I don't mind the songs in this film at all. It's Cinderella, it's gonna have them, and a lot of them are really good. But that being said, what on earth is this half step of a song? It sounds like the start to an ordinary full-length song, but then it ends after the first verse. Why? It's hardly even worth mentioning in the video. But at least the song's length means that we can get right back into the action, with Cinderella and the mice trying to steal the wand. This scene starts off with the mice going in there alone, sure, standard hijinks. Then Cinderella comes in too, and the tension drives even higher until Cinderella gets caught, and it's now a race to leave with the wand that takes her to the top of the stairs where she has a chance to say it, but at the last second gets caught and sent to the next ship out of the kingdom, and it's the job of the mice to get the prince to save her. And how do they do it? With a song At the Ball, one of the best songs in the film. It's a really fun musical feast that has a killer ending. And what comes after this is probably the funniest interaction between two characters in an animated film. And if you've heard of this film, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. In it, the prince tells his father that he's going to find the real princess, telling him about the birds and the talking mice, and the king is hearing none of it, and is more concerned as to whether or not his son is going completely mad. This keeps going until the king takes decisive action, and you know what happens next.
I forbid you to take another step down these stairs! Okay.
Meanwhile, we see Cinderella's side of it, a melancholy song called Nothing More Than a Dream, a rendition of More Than a Dream Before. Something to be squashed in between the prince's rescuing of Cinderella, and it makes us all collectively go, oh shit! He's running out of time! But he's too late. The ship left the dock. How's he going to get there now? Well, he's going to ride to the cliff in the background and launch himself over there, of course. They meet back together and they all live happily ever after. Except, hell no! Because the stepmother still has one final trick up her sleeve, and that's turning Anastasia into a clone of Cinderella and getting her to catfish the prince into marriage. And that's not all. Cinderella gets sent to a giant, unfriendly-looking pumpkin sending her out the kingdom while the wedding happens. I know I said it at the start of the film, I know I said it when Cinderella found out about magic. But this is where the stakes really rise, and this movie takes on the pacing and direction of an action movie. It's now a race to get back to the castle in time for the wedding. Meanwhile, it's the critical moment for Anastasia, who's finally getting married to the prince of her dreams, and getting all she ever wanted. Cinderella's been stopped by the guards, it's too late for her, and at the last second... Oh shit! Anastasia fucking doesn't! And after all that, we get to see a final boss battle with the stepmother, where she reduces all the guards to barn animals, and she turns to Cinderella and Cinderella. Then the prince comes in at the final second to save the day and reflect the spell, turning the stepmother and Gisela into toads. And as everything gets resolved, the king and Anastasia have a nice moment where the king tells Anastasia that she's still worthy of love, no matter what. And I really like that. It paints the king in a much kinder light, and it completes Anastasia's character arc. It was a bit half-baked, but it was still pretty enjoyable, better than it was in Cinderella 2. And it ends with Cinderella and the prince deciding not to go back to the old timeline. That means not only is this movie canon, but every other movie in the series, including the 1951 original, isn't. It's the only canon film in the series. Nothing else counts, and I'm all for that. However, despite everything I've said over the past 10 minutes, I'm afraid I'll have to take it all back, because this film has no hip-hop cover of Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. 0 out of 10, all for the film. But that was Cinderella 3. In my opinion, a vast improvement over Cinderella 2 in every way. It's got better writing, a better plot, better songs. It essentially took the subplot of Cinderella 2 and turned it into a fully fleshed out movie. And the best part is that it has 100% less prune hate. So I think it's a great movie. Possibly better than Bambi 2, although that's a pretty difficult call to make. I'd have to watch that one again to decide. But either way, my name is Animation Review. That was my review of Cinderella 3. I hope you enjoyed, and I bid you good night.